This week on Dig Me Out. With your hosts, Jason Zia and Tim Minichi.
Jay, we're back again with another episode thanks to our Dig Me Out Union on Patreon. You can help us make the next episode happen by joining us at dmounion.com or digmeoutunion.com. And speaking of said union, Jay, we have a union member back with us for this episode. He's been here before. You might remember him from such episodes as Stanford Prison Experiment in 2019, Giants Chair in 2020, Ida in 2021, Into Another in 2022. I think there was, am I missing one? Oh yeah, 2018, Local H, Pack Up, Zcats. And then of course a bunch of roundtables. We did a Deftones roundtable, Gin Blossoms, Third Eye Blind, Silverchair, some other ones. Welcome back to the show, Steven Muzinski. Steve, how you doing?
Great. I'm going by Steven these days.
Steven.
Yeah, and we could just call me Steven John. We don't need that hard to pronounce Polish last name.
Hey, we celebrate. Look at combined me and Jay have more consonants than Czechoslovakia. Is Czechoslovakia still around?
Are you taking on a stage name, John, Steven?
Steven John.
You know, I might be. No, I don't know. Just that's where I'm at these days.
You're playing around with it. I get it.
Yeah.
You know, Ziek is not an easy name to live with. I get it. There's some days it'd be like. In fact, one of my nieces on social media, she just changed the spelling to be just Zeeak, so people would pronounce it correctly.
Ziek.
Like I give up.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was in high school, I had a brief 5-minute moment where I thought if I played football, I could go by TD Minichi, like touchdown Minichi.
Oh my goodness.
How cool would that be?
Oh dear Lord. TD Minichi.
That's what you should be writing your books under.
TD Minichi?
Yeah, that just sounds so sophisticated.
It's actually really fun to say. TD Minichi.
Yeah.
I'll have to consider that. Maybe that will be my pen name for my. I'll use my full name for like my adult dystopian sci-fi books, and then I'll write like children's books under TD Minichi for the kids. So, Steven, you're back with us. Tell everyone the album that you have selected for this episode.
Well, 25 years ago, in 1998. Superdrag released Head Trip in Every Key, so it seemed like it had to happen this year. So I brought it.
March
the
24th
crowd favorite
of 1998, Superdrag's Head Trip in Every Key. Now we've talked about Superdrag before. We've had John Davis from Superdrag on the show. We talked about when we had him on the first time, it wasn't for Superdrag. It was for the Lees of Memory. We just interviewed him when I think it was when the first album came out, and then we had him on again for the second record, the second Lees of Memory album. But we did the first Superdrag album, Regretfully Yours, as just an early review. God, I want to say that was like maybe first or second season when we talked about that record. And yeah, we've talked about, Superdrag has come up throughout the podcast when we talked about power pop bands, various albums and roundtables. Superdrag tends to
we have a John Davis channel on the Discord.
Right.
They're a touchstone for us. I think when we do reviews, we call back to them quite a bit. So
yeah, John, if you're listening, just to show you how obsessed our fan base is with the podcast, in our Discord, which I hope you know what a Discord is, but essentially a message board, we have things like different sections to talk about news, music history, music videos. And then we have it break down by like big bands that we like to talk about, like Stone Temple Pilots from the 90s or Pearl Jam or whatever. And then we have a whole John Davis channel just to cover all of your various projects. That's rarefied air. Only a few people have their own dedicated channel. I believe it's you and
Dooley.
Greg Dooley, maybe. Sean Smith has a channel, in memoriam channel, and maybe one or two other. Maybe I have to. Who do we have any other ones? Jay Robbins.
Okay.
Because Jay Robbins got a million things going on, and I did add a John Reese channel because I believe tomorrow there's going to be an announcement with regards to Rocket from the Crypt. So they posted something on their Twitter about October 27th. I don't know if this is going to be a tour or a record or what. Hopefully both, because I've never seen the band live, and I'm saying it now. I am willing to travel to go see them if they come to the Midwest. Like if they go to Chicago or if they go to Cleveland or something like that, I'm going, because this is one band I do want to see live before I, hit the nursing home. So, which I'll go if I'm in a nursing home too. I'll get out. I'll escape in my wheelchair and wheel myself out and get to the club. A little bit about this record. It's the second album, as we mentioned. It was recorded with Jerry Finn, who is a producer that a lot of people know from a wide variety of records. Do you want to know what his first credit is? Color Me Bad. His first engineering, an assistant engineer, remix assistant was Color Me Bad. Got to start somewhere. He worked as an engineer on bands like The Muffs, Green Day, Matthew Sweet, Goo Goo Dolls, Jawbreaker, Pennywise, Rancid, That Dog, Weezer, Fastball, Magna Pop, New York Loose, a lot of mixing. I mean, he does a lot of stuff. So he was the main engineer on this record, and then the assistant engineer was, I'm gonna mess up his name, but it's Nick Raskulents, who at the time was like an assistant, but now is like a big time, like he works on Foo Fighters records and has his own studio. And I think that's where John's been recording, is at Nick's studio for a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he's the fifth Beatle to Superdrag for sure.
Got it. So the lineup at this time, I think this is the last time this is the lineup. It's John Davis on multiple instruments and main songwriter. On guitar, it's Brandon Fisher and backing vocals. Tom Pappas on bass guitar and backing vocals. And I think this is the last record. I think there's a new bass player on the next record. And then Don Coffey Jr. on drums. Stephen, is this an album you got when it came out, or was this something you came to later?
Yeah, I'd love to nerd about when I found this record. It was actually in 2002. I was late to both of their records, so I would get the first record probably sometime around 98. BMG was doing I was a full-blown BMG and Columbia House member, and they were blowing out a bunch of cassettes were on clearance. So I got Regretfully Yours in like a lot of 10 cassettes. I got them for like $2 each.
Cassettes in the late 90s is a rare thing.
Right? No, man, that was the bargain move. If you were just trying to go for like, I just want to get as much as I can, that was the way to go, because they were so cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so that's how I got my hands on Regretfully Yours. Loved it. Have such fond memories of listening to that tape and my mom's 1994 Chevy Lumina, the first summer that I was able to drive on my own. That was like one of 9 tapes that I rotated, and I just loved it dearly. But I kind of forgot about the band, and it wouldn't be until 2002 I was going through some used CDs at a store in Michigan, and I happened upon a copy of this, and it was just like, oh shit, yeah, this fucking band, like I love this band. Would you look at that? They have an album I didn't know about. I took it over to the when they had the listening stations and record stores, and I put it on, and I was just like, I must have listened to the first track all the way through, and just like was like, what the hell? This is so good. And so yeah, I bought it, and I listened the shit out of it from that point forward. But yeah, 2002 is when I found it.
Okay.
What about you guys?
Well, I think I covered this probably in our Regretfully Yours episode, but Regretfully Yours was one of the first albums I had to review for our music department in college to determine what the singles were going to be we were going to play on the radio station.
Oh, that was your job.
That was my, well, they gave that to all the new people because they wanted to see what their taste was like. You know, if you come back,
you were being evaluated.
I was being evaluated, exactly. And the first couple records were like Zumpano, Look What the Rookie Did, which we did a very early episode on that one.
Yeah.
Catherine's Sorry, which is that Chicago band. And this one, and there were like, maybe not this one, Regretfully Yours. But I remember not really getting it at the time. I was like, I don't know, there's this one song he's kind of like screaming about the sucked out the feeling, and I don't really, this isn't my jam. It wasn't until years later that I went back, and probably through Jay, because Jay was a huge Superdrag fan in the 2000s and he had all the records. And I think through just constantly playing them, I just sort of reacquainted myself and went, oh, okay, there was more to this band than just that song. And then I've been a fan ever since. What about you, Jay? Do you remember?
Oh my goodness. To fact check me against my previous story. I mean, I remember Regretfully Yours, but I don't remember. I remember getting in the band more in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
I think my peak fandom was coming out of this record and then into Valley of Dying Stars, sort of that period where they went quiet for a while and then reappeared with that record. And that was peak Superdrag for me.
I agree with you. I feel like around 2000 when in the Valley of Stars happens, because I was so outside of the like mainstream of listening to like new metal, post grunge, you know, that kind of stuff, that you were listening. This weirdly, it almost fit in with like the action rock that you were listening to, like the Helicopters and Lucifer, because it had like this more direct approach.
Yeah, there's an edge. There's like a hard rock edge to it, and obviously, you know, a melodic sense to it that was fresh in the late 90s. You know, it's sort of, you don't hear much of the alternative droney woes me stuff on here,
right?
Or from him in general.
Because I feel like I didn't go back. I feel like I went then to Last Call for Vitriol, which came out in 2002. And then they had a bunch of like random EPs and compilations that came out between like this record and that and Last Call for Vitriol. I think there's like got to be like 3 or 4 EPs and a comp of like stuff. I probably told the story in the prior episodes, but I was so into this era in the Valley of Dying Stars and Last Call for Vitriol so much that, and I loved the sound of the band so much that I figured out what drums the drummer was playing, and it was like this obscure custom drum maker in Nashville, and actually ordered drums because I wanted that drum sound. So the drum kit I ended up having built was based on like doing early internet research on like who built his drums and how to get them. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, and there was also in this time, Vagrant Records was really big. They had a bunch of bands, and they put out a split with The Anniversary.
That's right.
Which I remember that because The Anniversary was a big deal for their 2 records when they came out. And I think Record from the Crypt was on Vagrant at that point, and it was a whole thing. Anyway, let's talk about the comments we got over at Patreon for this episode. We'll share the results of the poll at the end. But here's what people said. Jeremy Amend, easiest vote ever. And then he made a comment. Looks like Ian voted EP already. He did not. And Ian said he did not. Darren Lehman, fantastic album. The fact they're written off in certain circles as a one-hit wonder is an absolute joke. Joe Royland, one of my favorite albums ever. So easy vote. This seems like this is going in a certain direction. Let's see if it continues that way. Justin Wexler, I mean, come on. This album is perfect. Darren Svensson, great album, though my personal fave is 2000's In the Valley of Dying Stars. This one really showed they were more than the sucked out novelty one-hit wonder. Richard Waterman, I'm with Darren. In the Valley of Dying Stars is my personal fave, but this album is a close second. Looking forward to some good rock again. Willie Dillon, as the others said, this is a very easy, worthy album. I mean, She's a Holy Grail and The Art of Dying are worth the price of admission alone. It's like if the Beatles were actually good.
Dear Lord.
Dropping bombs, Willie Dillon, right there. Jim Laskowski says, this band had such a run with this record, In the Valley of Dying Stars and Last Call for Vitriol. This one remains my favorite of the three because nearly every track brings something special to the table and never neglects the hooks. Amphetamine is such a killer ballad. Now I have to go back and listen to this one again, so thanks for covering it. Frank Garcia Hell, absolutely worthy album. One of Superdrag's best. To echo Darren, it's a real shame some people only know this as the sucked out one-hit wonder. Excellent songs, strong catalog, and killer live. Jim Copany, while I consider Regretfully Yours a near perfect album, this is an excellent example of a follow-up to a popular release that found the band exploring darker territory that maybe was a little harder for a fan of their earlier singles to grasp onto, while being an exciting development forward for anyone giving it a deeper listen. So it's absolutely a worthy album. Teresa Hacker, didn't even have to think about this one. Still pretty high on my favorite albums of all time list. And then Mike Bankhead said, whoever has this as better EP, well, I have questions for that person. And over in the Discord, he said this is his second favorite album of all time, not just of Superdrags, of all time. So nary a negative word. And yet somebody may have voted for better EP. We'll find out.
Maybe they just tapped.
Sure, that's it. Or maybe they wanted to upset everyone, and they really
Trolling.
did. They were just trolling with that.
Great.
We'll see.
We have very little trolling going on.
No,
I'm
every
proud
once
of
in a
that.
while, I see a little conflict pop up, and I think about, do I need to get in there? Do I need to tell everybody to go to their corners and have a timeout? But usually it resolves itself. I would hate to think that behind the scenes there are people that are like, I hate that goddamn so-and-so.
I like to think that we're too tired for that. We just don't have the energy for trolling anymore. We're just like, look, man.
I'm just trying to stay awake most days. I'm like the robot trying to pull the oil back in. I'm like, come on, man. Just give me a little time off. Just want a 3-day weekend.
I just want to chill and talk about music I like. I don't need any wins here.
All right. We've talked enough we talked around the record. Let's talk about the record. I feel stupid in saying this, but Jay, tell me one thing you like about the Head Trip in Every Key by Superdrag, because I know it's more than one.
I'm going to try to keep it to two main ones.
Okay.
So we always kind of remark that anytime we have to review a record that we really, really love, it's usually the hardest ones to review because it's so hard to explain sometimes why you really, really like something and verbalize it. But I'll start with, I just killer songs. I mean, from start to finish, I think every song on here is incredibly strong melodically. And I think with this listen of it, obviously I've listened to this record hundreds of times. I was focusing a lot on his vocals and really trying to understand like how he approaches things as a singer. And I think that's where I started to kind of understand his approach to songwriting and why it works so well. You know, obviously the melodies are super strong, but I think they're strong because in a way they're both simple, but they're always moving and interesting. You know, they're easy enough that you can quickly grab onto them, but they're not so simple that they become like repetitive or dull or predictable. I think Expanding My Mind is a great example of that, right? You know, start of the record.
You can get me slack jaw. You were slipping through the last straw. Barely moving to the last waltz. To a symphony of my faults. me. I'm still doing 5 to 7. Wishing liars got to heaven.
Vocal and that guitar kind of pulls you into this intimate moment, lets you focus on like how he's setting the melodies up. He does a lot of like ending on high notes on his lines, which I think is really smart and works really well. He does that in the chorus and Pine Away. Some of the verses are just as strong or stronger than the choruses. Sold You an Alibi does the same thing, where those verse lines are always building to a high note. I also just appreciate, I think, got a better sense of like how good of a singer he is too. I think sometimes with a band like this, you're so like into the songs and kind of the performance, and maybe he gets lost a little bit on just how strong he is in delivering these songs vocally. The other thing I picked up on in terms of serving the song is just how well the guitar riffs in particular and the vocal work together. So he does a really good job of like going back to that accessible thing where the vocal line is just close enough to the guitar riff that they're, kind of in sync and melodically aligned, but they're different enough, like offset enough, that then it becomes something more than just the riff. So if you just sing with the guitar riff all the time, it's just like predictable and like you're not adding anything to it. And if you're always off the riff, like singing counter to it, then sometimes you're like dissonant and it's hard for your brain to process it because you're sort of like trying to put these two different melodies together and it can be difficult. Sometimes I like that, right? But for what I think he's trying to do, he's like walking this line where it's like kind of close, but then it deviates in these really clever ways. So I just started to pick up on that too, I think, on this record. The other big thing I like about this record in particular is just it has this balance of being a little bit layered, at times a little experimental. Like he pulls in these additional instruments. There's some sitar sounds on here. There's some organs. There's some hand claps and like horns and other stuff, but it always stays punchy and like a rock. It always sounds like a rock band playing that stuff. Like it never gets overly produced, layered, complex. It still sounds like raw, punchy. The drums are always, like I mentioned before, I love the drum sound on this record and the subsequent records. There's always this rawness, I think, there as well. So there's, again, with the songwriting, there's a simplicity, but then there's something very sophisticated about it. There's something about that in the production too. It's intimate, it's a little edgy, but then it's also got this other aspect to it that can be layered, a little lush, a little adventurous or experimental. It's unique in that way. Like I think most bands like tend to be one way or the other, and they have a hard time mixing the two together into a cohesive sound. And I think pretty consistently, like on this record, he does that. You can even shift pretty dramatically from different styles. Like Shuck and Jive is this super like fuzzy, distorted bass riff, and then it cuts to this Beach Boys style break. And it totally is seamless. Like it totally works. But if you listen to two parts of the songs, you're like, these would never be in the same song. But like your experience of listening to it somehow, with the way that the production is engineered and the way it's put together, like it's completely seamless. And that's all within one song. That's not even getting into like the different styles you hear throughout the record that somehow, if you listen to them one at a time, would seem different, but in the sense of the record, seem very cohesive. So that's the other big thing I think about this record that's really successful for me. What works for you, Tim?
Well, like you, I considered the fact that it's hard to talk about stuff that you really like and enjoy and have been around for, a long time. So I was trying to think big picture on this record because I like the way it sounds. I like the songs. I think one of the things I appreciate about not only this record, but how John writes as a songwriter is the songs are both contemporary. Like this sounds like a 90s rock record, but there is so much in here that draws from a vast amount of time and catalog. You can point out the obvious things like there's some Big Star and some Beach Boys and Beatles and Zombies and stuff like that. But like you mentioned on Pine Away with ending the vocal high rather than low, that's a very like 1960s soul Motown thing to do, to raise the voice at the end, like this big crescendo for the vocal rather than like the Four Tops or the Temptations would be doing something like that, as opposed to, sort of fading out so you can get to the next verse. And I love the experimentation that happens. I know that's from him listening to a lot of different stuff, whether it's adding the sitar, the strings, some of the keys that he's using. There's like some Eastern keys, which obviously the Beatles messed around with that, as the Stones. We wouldn't have it. Paint It Black is the one I'm thinking that has the sitar, right? Like, right. That's what I'm thinking of. So, yeah. I mean, it makes sense because I hear that Stones, not simplicity, but just directness in aspects of the songs, but yet it sounds like you could play it alongside Matthew Sweet, or you could play it alongside the Posies, you could play it alongside all those albums, and it makes sense. There's just this bigger thing happening here, that when I was reading about the history, they actually got it like a pretty good amount of money to make this record, because the record label Elektra, after Sucked Out was a hit, they said,
Sure.
We're going to give you some money.
Yeah.
Please make us a hit record. And John went, well, now we get to do all the crazy things we ever wanted to do in the studio. We can bring in a string section and we can do this. And the record label went, what? We can't, there's no singles on this record. He's like, yeah, throw out Do the Vampire. That's a single, or Hellbent. Those are singles. And the guy who was their rep at the label was 100% behind them and said, yes, we can do this. But, it's 1998. The odds of this breaking through on mainstream radio in 1998 were, you would have had to have another Sucked Out, like that blatant of a,
it's
hit.
making me, we've talked about this in the past. I characterize it in different ways. My sense right now is that radio got dumber throughout the decade. By the end of the 90s, it was very dumb. And like, this is not a dumb record.
No.
So it's like bad timing in terms of, I'm sure the label wanted another hit. Not to say Sucked Out is dumb, but it's very accessible. It's cheeky. It works like as a single. But even a couple of years later, like, radio's gotten even dumber than that. And they're getting more sophisticated. And the two are just not a marriage.
Right. And I think you can tell from the opening song, I'm Expanding My Mind. I mean,
it's literally
that. But also, like, think about the volume of Regretfully Yours. I mean, that's a power pop record. There's a lot of guitar. It's loud. It gets into some shoegazy stuff. I mean, and it's not quiet like early Lush shoegaze. I mean, it's big shoegaze. And then you open with this song that's acoustic, mid-tempo, and there's even some like almost country-ish like slides and bends in it. So you're basically saying we're rewriting the playbook here. Like, you're not getting the same record as you got the first time around. And in some ways, it reminds me of what Wilco did. Wilco went from making a very straightforward country rock record, alternative country. That's exactly what you would have expected from Jeff Tweedy coming out of Uncle Tupelo, based on what his songwriting was like. And then they go and make Being There, which is like this expansive, very elaborate record that has very obvious touch tones. Like, this is our Rolling Stone song, this is our John Lennon song, this is our Johnny Cash song. Like, they were intentionally aping their influences on much of that record. So I don't hear that same level of like obvious influence, but the thing that really I think brings you back is that, yeah, the songs are great, but there's so much interesting stuff happening on each song. You know, the guitar tone between Shuck and Jive, like you mentioned, is a lot different than Pine Away, which leans back more into that Regretfully Yours sound. Yeah, I mean, we can just talk about this for a while, but I'm going to let Steven come in here and share with us one of the things that you like about this record since you picked it.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting, I like a lot of things about this record. I'm not going to hide that. I think I wore it on my sleeve in the intro. But, one thing that really occurred to me in thinking about this review is, yes, I love the instrumentation. I love how experimental it gets and the scope of it, but kind of like you said, Jay, it still somehow works. Like, it still somehow seems tied together by a thread, and it's in the title of the record, right? Head trip in every key. Like, here you go. I'm going to just give you this like wide variety, but it's still somehow all Superdrag. So one nerdy thing I'll point out is that I think a big reason why the added instrumentation works so well is because Don Kofi Jr. plays so simply. He creates so much space in the songs by how simply he plays, but he plays so effectively. Like, each hit just fucking hits. Like, every hit of the drum is so good and so precise, and it's nothing flashy. He didn't reinvent the wheel, and I never got to see Superdrag live, but I've seen plenty of videos, and I'll be honest, like, I don't get the same sort of satisfaction out of watching that man play the drums like I would a guy like Dino from Dredge or Mike from Russian Circles. But what he's doing and the choices that he's making, like I said, create this immense scope for John to get wild. And like, yeah, let's bring in the horns. Like, I'm a little baffled by like how Cake can get on the radio in 1998 with Never There, but like, why can't Mr. Underground be on the radio? Like, it's so catchy. It's got witty lyrics and cynicism, which is great for the 90s, and horns, and it's just like catchy and upbeat and danceable. Like, it's such a fun song. And then, on the turn of a dime, we can go down the Antichrist road or amphetamine, like, and get real dark, and then come back out and the album has this magical way of weaving all sorts of different moods at you, and it just all works. The sound of this album, I was noticing through my headphones that I could hear in the beginning of Sold You an Alibi, he's playing an electric guitar, but if you listen closely enough in the left channel, you can hear the pick hitting the strings. And it's done in such a way that I don't know if it's intentional or if that's like one of those things that's just there, but the sound of the album is amazing. And I want to read something here. Tim, it sounds like maybe you read it. So John did like a little 20-year retrospective with some online thing called At the Ashgrave Proclamation. And John talks a little bit about the Sound City experience. It's not too long, so I'm just going to read it if that's cool. and it gives a lot of scope as to why things sound the way they do. So he says, I mentioned Sound City already, but there's a list as long as your arm of classic recordings that were made there. The big room was just a magical space for sound. So you put us in there. I guess I'm boasting, but we definitely had our shit together at that point. We're in there with Jerry, who's a boss, Mike Fasano, the best drum tech in the business, Bobby Schneck, the best guitar tech in the business, Nick Rask, who I lovingly abbreviate his name because I can't say that shit either, assisting, who is the total fifth Beatle with Superdrag, and now has a resume of his own that shows how incredibly gifted he is. We've got 5 different drum kits that can be mixed and matched to cater specifically to each song, about 25 different guitars, each one being the best case example of its make and model, a room full of vintage, custom, shop, and boutique tube amps, the capability of renting a Mellotron or a sitar or anything that came to mind, one of the world's greatest Neve consoles, a closet full of Beatles mics, and a 2-inch tape machine. You really couldn't invent a better scenario for recording music. You know, and it all shows. It all shows. If you like, I've been listening to this record since, you know, for 20 years now, and it just continues to show itself to me in a new light. Like, I fell in love with it. The reason it was my pick for this year is I'm in that nerdy Facebook Superdrag Facebook group, and I saw that this was the 25th, and so I listened to it, and I just like fell back in love with it in an obsessive way that I hadn't been since I first discovered it. And I was just like, you know, the magic of an album that can still do that, and like, it's, you know, it's all here. Like, it goes to show, like, you know, all of that magic went into making it, and it's ear candy. It's absolute ear candy. And if you know about it, like all the comments showed on the thing, like, you're in part of a secret club. And what I love, what he says up here, he talks a lot about in this, and it's pretty reflective in the lyrics, about how frustrated he was by the music machine and the major label business and all the rigmarole that the band got put through, when he's a man that just wants to write and create songs and put them out into the world. He said, so you've heard Head Trip, so you already know the benefits of his drum methods, especially in the room we ended up in at Sound City. You won't see us in the movie, but we were definitely there. It doesn't matter. We made our own fucking movie at Sound City. And that's kind of what this album has become to me, is like, yeah, if you know, you know. Like, Tim, I was wearing that very same Superdrag shirt to a music festival, and I sit down on a hill to eat something, and this guy goes, "Hey, nice Superdrag t-shirt." And I was like, "Oh, cool." And we start chatting, and just like real quick, like realize that like he's just a huge nerd, and like I started quizzing him on shit. I'm like, "How deep do you go into JD's catalog?" Like, and so
you have arigato that
that was my measure. That was my unit of measurement. I was like, if this guy knows about arigato, then I think we're just made best friends. And so we now actually have me, Vadim, this guy, his name is Naz, and Vadim's partner Tanya. We all have a group chat called Team JD, and we just nerd about our immense love. Like, and it feels like a secret club. Like, yeah, most of the world doesn't know about this record, but like, that's what ended up happening. And now if you got a ticket to the show, like, you're in, and it's just such a great, beautiful record. Yeah, I could gush much more about it, but I'll pass there.
I wanted to say that I have a couple t-shirts that are like that. Like, I have a Fu Manchu t-shirt, and when someone comes up and is like, "Yeah, man," like, and it's usually not like, "Oh, I like that band," they're like, "Yeah." It's very laid back. That one, and what's the other shirt that I was wearing that someone, I don't remember. I've gone on a t-shirt buying binge since COVID, so I have a bunch of them now. But there's been a couple other ones where I've been like wearing Dinosaur Jr. I was at like a Chipotle, and the guy like was doing the thing where he's like ringing me up, and he looked up, he goes, just like gives me the point, like, "Yeah, man."
Yeah.
I was like, okay, Dinosaur Jr. Didn't expect to bond with somebody over that today. We've talked about all the things we like. Is there anything that, and maybe we don't have to, if you don't want to, you don't have to frame it in "this sucks" or something, but like, this is on another record and I like it better on that record as opposed to this record or whatever. You don't have to follow my advice or not, but do either of you have any
Well, one more compliment just to build on what Steven was saying just sonically about this album too is that so I recently got it, some new speakers for my desk and hooked them up, and obviously whenever you get new audio gear you want to listen to a bunch of different stuff and see how things sound. So I listened to this record obviously a ton this week, listened to other stuff from the 90s, listened to new stuff. This by far sounds the best. Like it pops. It just it sounds big. You turn it up, it sounds even better. It's kind of amazing. I don't know that I had appreciated it like sonically how good it sounds until this time around with it, where I really got appreciation for how rich of an album it is. And like your stance, even like it continues to give, like every time I pull it out, like I'm getting something new from it. So in terms of what doesn't work, I mean, not much. Obviously I can nitpick a couple things, like is it Antichrist? I
think it's supposed to be Antichrist, but it's Anne, like the name Anne. So yeah.
It's Antichrist. It's just a play on Antichrist. That's all.
Yeah.
A little dull in the verse. It's one of the rare times when he does the, I think follows the vocal guitar, like I mentioned about previously him not doing very often. He does that a lot in the verse of that song. Chorus is great though. So, for me, it's still a win. The horns go a little too far for me in Mr. Underground.
Oh,
I like when they first come in, but the way they end, they do this like little flourish at the end. It's very Aerosmith 90s.
Yeah, it's like it's got an Aerosmith.
It goes
vibe.
from like, oh man, this is a cool bop. Like it's just got a good that song has just got a fun energy coming out of Bankrupt Vibration, which is a little edgy and a little more angsty. And you're like, oh, this is a cool shift, and then the horns come in, you're like, oh, this is a cool layer. But when the way they end, I was like, this is getting into like cheesy Aerosmith territory for me.
I'm hiding in a tree, dizzy on the carousel, rocket all the way to hell, here in the
See, this is where being a lyrics person, in my opinion, adds that extra dimension. You're not a lyrics guy, right, Jay? You've said this on the show several times. The lyrics are so sarcastic and seething, and I don't know if in the pre-chorus he says, how does it feel to be one of the novelties? I don't know if the writing was already on the wall there and he saw himself as the one-hit wonder for Sucked Out. But the lyrics are so scathing, but not in a way that's like negative, because the music is so fun. And he's just slamming the musical industry. The second verse, if you'd like to see how dim the people can be, join the circus with me. John has this way of still being a humble human being, but recognizing the strength of his own songwriting. And I really enjoy when he takes these like little lyrical jabs. They're just all over this album. And yeah, I don't know. I think he's got plenty of legs to stand on. So it takes it that extra mile for me when it does. Yeah, it is a little cheesy and a little total Aerosmithy. Like, you're not wrong about that at all.
I want to circle back to what you mentioned about the sonic recording as a positive. One of the things I you talked about it popping. Sold You an Alibi has that real like dynamic approach to the guitar, like dent, 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 dent. The way that pops in conjunction with the bass and the kick drum, it is so perfect. And I think it also alludes back to your mention of drummer Don Coffey Jr. Like the drums are so perfect in that song, locking up with the guitar and the bass. It's might be I don't know if it's my favorite song on the record, but I love the way that song is constructed, the dynamics of all that. It's got such great punch. It's
so danceable. It's like,
right.
I just want to get up and start dancing when he does that little rhythmic shift after the "What About Today" part. And oh God, yeah, it's just so good. It's so good.
It's hard to pick a favorite, but like that's up there, probably in the top 3 of the album. And since I'm giving this a decent single, that's probably all the 3 I'm gonna. No, I'm just kidding. Steve, and you mentioned that you might have a friend stopping by.
Oh, is she ringing?
No, I'm just saying. Do you know if she's going to be dropping by soon? Jay, we have on the phone with us from the cover of the album. No, I'm just kidding.
No, she said work is absolutely tied up and she won't be able to make it.
Okay. What did she have a comment that she wanted to share about the record?
You know, what did she say to me earlier? She said,
this is your friend Lindy?
Yeah, this is my friend Lindy. She lives in the Bay Area, San Francisco, California, Oakland specifically. Shout out to Lindy. She specifically said, I have a love letter to this album I've been writing since 2000. Deep, deep, deep in my being. She loves it. And I think, I was like, if you want to just pop on real quick and cast your worthy album glory, then by all means. But yeah, I guess it's not going to happen. So I just did it for her.
So before we get into actually rating this record, a couple people under the comments mentioned that either this was their favorite record or In the Valley of Dying Stars. I think Jim mentioned that Regretfully Yours was his favorite. For you guys, if you're ranking Superdrag albums, where is this for you? Is this number 1, number 2, number 3? How you rating that? Jay, I'll start with you.
Where does this rank for me?
Yeah, in Superdrag history.
Probably 2. In terms of you saying like what's my favorite in the catalog? Yeah, it's probably 2. I think In the Valley of Dying Stars is still 1.
Okay.
I don't. This one though, I went back to Valley after listening to this, and it held up really well. It had me second guessing, like, well, maybe this is my favorite record. It's probably just because I hadn't listened to it as much recently. But right now I'll go with Valley 1, this 2, and then either Regretfully Yours or Vitriol after that, and then I won't do the whole catalog. But for me, it's probably 2.
Okay, a couple people said that. A couple people had In the Valley first and this one second. What about you, Steven?
It is a very serious arm wrestling match between In the Valley and Head Trip, but I do think that Head Trip wins more often than not.
Okay.
If had to, that's a tough ranking, man.
It is. This is like trying to, this is difficult. It's trying to pick your favorite kid. I'm with you, Jay. In the Valley, I think I just spent more time with that record. And it's just I don't know. There's something about that record. Maybe it's just because there's a little bit more rocking on that record than this, but I think it's going to be that record over this, although this made a very strong argument. But to say that it's like leaps and bounds better than Regretfully Yours or Last Call for Vitriol would not be true. Like these are all very, very close in terms of, where I would rank them. It's like 1.11, 1.112, 1, you know what I mean? Like it's not, I haven't spent much time with industry giants. That's the last record, right?
You know what? I just thought about that. Like I was going through the catalog. I was like, wow, I remember so much excitement about them getting the original lineup back together for that record. And I don't remember that at all. Like I remember all the hype building up to it coming out, and I don't remember any of the songs from it.
Do yourselves a favor. There is a bonus track from that record that for some unearthly reason isn't on the record. It's called Filter Out the Air. It is such a fantastic Superdrag song that I didn't even learn about until I don't know, last year, 2 years ago, something like that. Yeah.
Huh.
It's on
Since
this.
we're on the
Yeah.
topic.
Okay. I'll check it out. It's on the streaming version now. It's like track 13. They must have included all the B-sides.
It's on the streaming version?
Yeah. On Apple Music, it's listed at track 13.
Get out of here. Is it on
And there's a
some stupid
14 track
Spotify?
called Four on the Floor.
Oh, shit.
What you doing there?
Sorry. Already
Um,
fell.
That's okay.
I just got excited. It was not on streaming for the longest time.
Interesting. It's not on Spotify.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's a bummer. Oh, I think it might
It's,
have been an iTunes exclusive. Trying to promote the album because we're talking
Maybe,
09,
yeah.
I believe.
Oh,
So
that would
I
make
think
March
it was
sense.
18, 2009.
I think it was an
Records.
iTunes. I think it was an iTunes exclusive.
Interesting.
Anyway, we got a little distracted. I did want to go back to, I genuinely was combing this record trying to find some sort of criticism about it or something that I didn't like. And the closest I came is like, sometimes I wonder if maybe he shouldn't have said fuck in Sold You an Alibi. He says, looking for lies, sympathy, fuck.
Hmm.
I wonder if that's a lyrical regret of his or not. Like, cause I don't know. I have trouble pulling apart the context of what he means by that.
Oh, you don't mean like from a single potential? You mean more from a lyric choice?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that would have worked as a single if it didn't have the F bomb or not. John thought that the closing track should have been the single. Do you guys have any front runners for?
The Art of Dying is the single.
Yeah.
What?
No,
He's
John.
being funny.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I think the Mr. Underground is a good oddball choice. I don't think there really is oddly enough, a great perfect single like that. I would go, this is the 3.5 minute long radio single. I think there's some really close songs, but
I mean,
It's-
Do the Vampire was a single, correct?
yeah.
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 To me, that and Shuck and Jive have like the local H kind of vibe to it. Like there's just a beefy, muscular riff there that
Mhm.
catches you right away, and I could see it working in alternative radio from that angle. I think they were
Boy,
big
that
at the
would have
time
been
on radio.
that would have been funny if that actually broke as a single. Given he does take pretty hard shots at the label. He says breaking up the band by a palm tree in the sand. I think it's in that part that you mentioned, the Beach Boys, the Beach Boys part.
Oh, right, yep.
I was thinking of
what
maybe
about Pine Away?
yeah, I was thinking about that could be
To me, that song, I want to mention that one because to me that is, I didn't hear it before until I listened to this time, but to me that feels like the precursor to Leads of Memory. Like that loaded up for me, like, oh, when I first heard Leads of Memory, it was a little bit of like, I really liked it, but I was surprised a bit by the sound. Hadn't heard that in him, but now when I go back and listen to Pine Away, I was like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Like I can hear it now in that song and like where the idea for that band came from.
Pine Away is actually an older song. It was written, there's like a handful of songs that were written in 95. He propped those out in that write up too. And Pine Away was definitely one of them. It's one of the oldest Superdrag songs, in fact. So yeah, I mean, even if the label ideally wanted more of a carbon copy of Regretfully Yours, I think John's point was like, well, then fucking take Pine away, because it's, it predates so many of these other songs, and kind of falls more in line with early Superdrag.
I'm thinking if you want an outside long shot choice, you'd have to do a single mix for this song that was edited, and maybe a different vocal mix. But Bankrupt Vibration would be an interesting choice for a single, because it reminds me of Tender by Blur, which I believe is either this year or next year, is that single comes out. That like hand clap kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like his vocal has a lot of reverb on it, and I feel like if you take that off and it gets a little bit clearer, it could actually be kind of a single. Probably have to shorten it too by like 30 seconds.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that.
I'm sure John's probably listening, saying, "You're an idiot. What are you talking about? That's not a single." So let's do the perfunctory worthy album, better EP, decent single. Jay,
Worthy album. Come on now.
I know.
I think I've said it all at this point. It's it's one of those records. I think it like brings people together. I think it's in terms of, if you just look at our community, like it cuts across a lot of different tastes within, all the different genres that we kind of talk about, and we've got people that are super into. And I think it's one of those albums that does a pretty good job of bringing different people together. It's pretty accessible. You can play it for your kids and your wife, and they probably won't hate it. You can play it loud and it sounds great. Like, you can rock out to it. It's a little heady in times. You can listen to it in headphones. It sounds good. You can listen to it in speakers. It sounds good. It's just an all around really high quality record.
Correct. Steven.
Worthy album.
Yes, of course. And I'm with both of you. It's a worthy album. I am genuinely interested to know who at Patreon voted better EP, because 86% of the vote was for worthy album. 14% was better EP. Now, I think that means there was at least 2 votes for better EP, because 14% would not be one vote of
a pair of trolls.
Yeah. Well, hold on. There's 14 votes. So how's the math work on that? There's 14 votes. 14% voted better EP. Yeah. Anybody got a calculator out there that wants to do the math for me? Because I don't know how that works. But anyway, I can download the results. I wonder what would happen if I do that. What does that mean to download results? Is it going to tell me?
Get a little Excel spreadsheet of them.
Oh yeah, maybe it'll tell me who voted for everything.
In case you need to crunch those numbers.
I hope
Did
so.
Did you guys see Superdrag live in the 90s?
I did
in early 2000s.
No.
Fuck! I can't believe none of us.
No,
None of us
there
got
were.
to
It's
see him.
2 votes. 2 votes for better EP, and there you
I
go.
would have had an opportunity more so probably during the Vitriol tour, but I don't remember, for whatever reason I didn't end up catching them.
I wonder if they ever played Columbus. I don't have a
They
recollection.
must have.
I'm sure they
must
did.
have.
I want to
They're-
say they played Little Brothers, and for whatever reason, like I couldn't go or something.
Yeah, if it was any place, it was Little Brothers back then. That would have been the perfect venue for them.
Yeah, I wish I could speak more to their live capabilities, because I feel like on songwriting prowess alone, like there's no reason that John Davis shouldn't be at a level that Dave Grohl is at. Like,
Yeah,
on songwriting alone, I don't know that they could bring it live to a level that's needed to become that level of, Foo Fighters level of arena rock.
sure.
I can't speak to that, but
Well, you
I
have
mean-
to get an unnecessary third guitar player and keyboard, and then that's when you make it to arena rock. That's what like Pearl Jam and Foo Fighters do. They bring in like an extra guy to play guitar. You're not sure why he's there, and then a keyboard player that has no business being on any of the songs.
Wait, it's funny you bring that up because I did just see Sunny Day recently, and they had a third guitar player, and
Alan Epley from Shiner and Life and Times.
it worked. Oh, he didn't play the shows that I saw.
Oh, he didn't?
I wish. No,
Maybe
that
they
would've been
switched.
Amazing.
Okay, maybe they switched some of the shows because he was doing some.
Strangely enough, though, I saw him in LA and San Diego, and it was a different guitar player both nights.
That's weird. Maybe
Yeah.
they're just having a different guitar player every
What?
night just to see what happens.
I don't.
I'm so confused. How could you do or why and how could you do that?
I don't know. I never did find an answer. I never
I
did.
don't know.
I
I'm
thought
just
it
thinking
was-
about like what would you tell a third guitar player? Maybe the parts are like
Well, Sunny Day did. Enoch doesn't play a lot of guitar, right? Like he's just kind of a rhythm player.
I don't know. When we saw him, we played the whole set.
Did he?
Yeah.
I mean, there's sections where he'll stop playing, but like, no, yeah, he's in there.
Is a third person playing like very minor parts?
I wish I could tell you. I'm not
Come on, Steven.
savvy enough to
Aren't
you know.
you in multiple bands?
Yeah,
I've
but
been
sometimes
studying
you know,
that shit. What's he playing? What's he doing over there? I'm always
in that
fascinated when, like,
situation, I'm just looking up there doe-eyed. You know, I'm all
Well, you're also
mystified and
looking. Yeah,
everything.
there you go. Yeah.
Everything sounds amazing, and I can't tell what's making it happen, but it all
Sure.
sounded really good and really full. So it just felt like something must have been being done right by that guy, the auxiliary guitar.
The auxiliary guitar. There, I believe, in the works, some new Superdrag music. I think that's being teased.
There was. It got kiboshed already.
It
I was
did.
wondering because that was a little while ago that we heard about that. So I'm assuming
Yeah.
that's dead. Did it
Yeah,
happen?
it got. No, not specifically. I just know that, you know, it was, you know, I think these days John is just very specific about how he wants to make music and how he wants to proceed.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, I get that.
you know, too many irons in the fire, I suppose.
Yeah, there was a tweet 11/17/22. What if we made our best LP in 2023?
Yeah, he teased the shit out of it.
I mean, it leaves it open. What if you didn't?
Yeah, I don't know. There was wonder if the record was going to be a bit more stripped down and reminiscent of their early sound. They played a show this past fall, like a year ago, I think, late last fall in September, and they played only like songs that they wrote within those first 2 or 3 years of being a band. So there were some, like I said, some of the Head Trip songs were written back then, so they included those, a couple of those, but they were playing like pre-Regretfully Yours tunes off the Fabulous 8-track sound and you know, some of the earlier, like the Senorita single. They're playing really, really early material at that show. So might have a little bit of a birdie inside JD's camp. So, you know, I hear things, but yeah, unfortunately it got kiboshed. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the songs turn up elsewhere, because we all know the man loves to write and release songs.
Well, yeah. I mean, between Lees of Memory, he also does, what is it? The Rectangle Shades. He's involved with that. And then he does his cassette stuff. There's always
He
like
did a solo Christian album last year too.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's an
Yeah.
album that's just under his name.
That's his third under John Davis.
2022 or 2023. It was pretty recent.
Yeah.
Well, we've said it all, I think, about Superdrag and their 1998 sophomore album, Head Trip in Every Key. Stephen, thank you for bringing this record to us. I think, you know, every 10 years we need to have a Superdrag discussion. That's probably, we need to shrink it down. You know, I think the last one was in like 2012. So maybe we'll try to do the next one in 2031. Because we'll still be doing this. We
Hey, who
refuse
knows?
to give up.
Maybe we'll turn a couple people onto the record that haven't heard it yet. That would be, I think, the best thing to come from talking about this thing, is to keep it going. Like, it's just such a great album. All of his
Yes.
music, really. I mean,
Mhm.
I ride hard for all.
Well, then
John
you got to
Davis
ask,
music.
like, if you mix in the Leaves of Memory albums with the Superdrag records, like how you rank in those? Because
Ugh,
like some of those Leaves of Memory albums are stellar.
my
You
goodness,
can't do that.
It's
And
just
mix it
not
all
fair.
up like that. They're all their
Well-
own thing.
Okay.
Although I would agree that the Lee stuff gets more super draggy by the end.
Yeah.
Like as the band progresses, the first record to me is very different than Super
Oh, yeah.
Drag, but as you get to into some of the second record and the third record, it starts to feel very super draggy.
I
Yeah,
think
I know you're
Unnecessary
not-
Evil is very super draggy. I mean, even
I do.
the title track itself, like
Yeah,
that could be
I do
easily
too.
a super drag song.
do
I don't know
too.
how he differentiates it besides the players. I don't know.
Jay, did you love that a stereo version came out of that record?
Thank God. Yes,
I
of
know you were.
course.
I know you're not on
Kills
Team
me. It
Mono.
still kills me. The what's the White album?
The blinding white of
Yeah, the
nothing.
Blinding White of
fact
Nothing
that
at all.
that is still mono, which I own on vinyl. I don't see that one on streaming anymore. It kills me that one's on in stereo.
That
Is that one
record should
not
be
on
yeah.
stream?
that absolutely should be on stereo.
It's like, John, I'll buy your records twice. Just stereo mix.
Yeah.
I look. I don't know. Like I said, I like when he gets real bold about his choices, and with respect to the way that he grew up and listening to music and falling in love with that sound. And like he talks about in that write-up too, about how when the whole album Head Trip was conceived as a vinyl piece, the label flat out refused to press vinyl, so he had to make the concession to put it out. He didn't even own a CD player at that point in his life. He was still consuming all of his music on vinyl. So the man has a real deep love of the mono, and I respect it.
Jay, the blinding white of nothing at all is on Spotify,
In
But not
mono.
Apple, huh?
but not
I
Apple.
don't see
Weird.
It. I don't see it on Apple.
They even have
But
like
you
the
do
7
have-
inches.
You do
Yeah,
have
they
that
got
filter
this-
out the air though.
They have the singles and EPs. They have the other 3 albums. They have the stereo version of Unnecessary Evil. They don't have the White album.
And the
I don't know how
stereo
they think
version of Unnecessary Evil is the only one that's on Spotify. So
As it should be. Like, I think the mono thing is a niche thing. Like, I think if you want to do that, like, you put out the stereo version and then you offer like a fan version on vinyl, special packaging in mono.
Yeah.
That's my point of view. What do I know? I'm no John Davis.
None of us are.
yeah,
Well,
yeah. Let's be honest here. Okay. Thank you, Stephen. We enjoyed chatting with you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
It's always fun to have you on. We greatly appreciate you supporting us. And what is going on with you music wise? Are you doing anything right now? Are you taking a break?
I've been in retirement. I'm actually slowly coming out. I just started jamming with a new band. I'm playing bass, and they know and love Superdrag and Local H and Not a Surf. And so yeah, I feel in good company. But it's brand new. Literally had the first practice last Thursday, and then the second one will be tomorrow. So
You're just feeling each other out. You're not slapping asses yet.
Yeah, two of the members are in a really rad band called Rosa from San Diego, and they just put out a pretty cool little shoegazy, washy, poppy, like sort of it's an EP, and it's really cool. I would urge people to check it out.
Isn't Rocket from the Crypt from San Diego?
Yeah, they sure are. And I almost interrupted you earlier when you brought that up at the top of the show, but I started working at Trader Joe's this summer,
Mhm.
and I work with a guy who plays guitar, and he's in John Reese's solo band. Um,
We gotta
so
get John
yeah,
Reese on the show.
I've got a little inside. I would love to try to see if we could make that happen.
I was literally just playing the RFTC self-titled record for my daughter in the car yesterday, and because that's the one I kind of think is like accessible, because it's got like she liked Break It Up. It's got that like 50s kind of feel, and then
Yeah.
You Gotta Move has that like Spanish rhythm thing happening, and she was kind of digging it. I don't think she gets the voice just yet. I'm like, you gotta, I know it's a little raspy. It's gonna
Forgive
take a
him.
little while.
He's a showman. He's a showman, and the sound of the band is real big.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that doesn't necessarily come across via car speakers, but we're getting there. We're getting there. For folks who are interested in maybe picking a record or voting in a poll on a record or voting in our monthly tournament polls, you can join us at digmeoutunion.com or dmounion.com. You get to do the things I mentioned. You also get our bonus aughts episodes, which are along with our 80s episodes. We have almost 30 bonus episodes. You also get the video for these podcasts that we do and stuff like that. Jay, were you gonna? You look like you were leaning into the mic, like you wanted to interject something there. No,
I'm just
Okay.
letting you do your thing, man.
Gotcha. I was just trying to read your body language. I misread. Sorry. Patreon. That's where you go. If you want to suggest an album for one of our polls, you go to digmeoutpodcast.com, drop in the album name, the artist, and while you're submitting it, and while you're doing that, you can also sign up for the Box newsletter, which is available to our patrons. It's a weekly Substack newsletter of new releases from the 80s, 90s, and aughts related artists. Perhaps it's some new music, perhaps it's a book, a documentary, TV show, stuff like that. Also, 2 reviews of new releases. When this comes out, I will have talked about the new Rolling Stones record, which, spoiler alert, is not terrible. I was not enthusiastic. I don't know about you guys, but I was not enthusiastic about the Stones making new music in 2023, but it's got some good stuff on it. It's not my favorite Stones record. I'm not going to put it in the top 10 or anything like that, but there's a few good cuts. There's also some.
Hey, man. It's good to see people,
Yeah,
making the music. Like
it feels like they hit every era of their career in it. Like there's a song that kind of sounds like Exile on Main Street. There's also one that kind of sounds like Dirty Work era Rolling Stones, which is not my favorite era of the Rolling Stones. It's a little too Harlem Shuffle for me, but
yeah,
overall it's pretty solid. So the Box newsletter is where you get to read or listen to those 1-minute reviews every week. And finally, Apple Podcasts is where you go to leave positive feedback for the show. For Jay, I'm Tim. We're out. We'll be back next week with another episode of Dig Me Out.